Mr. Chairman, my basic question is to the panel is what's changed? The last time we were here, I think it was August 11th, and Senator Rigel hinted at some of that. I presented two indicators. I presented some figures associated with the gross receipts tax and withholding taxes. Now, in the governor's revised budget, she doesn't use the GRT as having gone up, but we're seeing that the income and withholding taxes are the areas that are increased. But I just want to remind everyone, and then I'll get to my question for either member of the panel, that the GRT between that period of time of March, April, May, June has an average decline of 17%. Even if you took the withholding taxes for the same period, Mr. Chair, between March, April, May, and June of this year, if you averaged it out, it's at a negative 3%. Even as early as this morning with you, Mr. Chairman, I had asked if an economic development strategy had been presented. Is there something that was different that's on the table that could maybe persuade me to support the revised budget? And the short answer out there from you, please correct me if I'm wrong, is that none's been submitted. And so I'm having a hard time understanding where the increase is going to come unless there's a plan to hire these people back. Where do we get the income tax revenues or corporate income tax revenues or withholding tax revenues? And I want to quote yourself, Mr. Chairman, from an August 6th article in the media that you yourself had submitted to the media that there's an influx of federal assistance money, and I'll summarize, pool money, that's going to help keep the government afloat. And then if you refer back to the August video, the August record, when we had these roundtables with the administration, certain admissions were made that these spikes in certain months were attributed to the infusion at the time of CARES Act funds, and we saw that, okay? I think if you go back on the tape, it'll reflect that. But let me fast forward from then. Actually, let me take you back one more article, and then I'll ask my question. The governor was quoted as saying in April that they're looking at federal spending to bridge the gap while tourism remains on the decline. And so my question would be, is that the strategy? Now, I can respect the fact that the administration is posturing that they're realizing certain revenues from this fiscal year, and I get it, I respect that. Because I can see that happening, Mr. Chairman, when the tourism numbers were doing really well. I can even see that as a result of our efforts in the 34th to increase the GRT. Gosh, I might even submit that I can see that as a reality of the 1% on improvements on real property. But things are very different, Mr. Chairman, from March, April, May, June, July, August, September. So the arguments, all the planning factors you can, for all intents and purposes, can throw out. And so my question is, I'll repeat it, is that the strategy? To rely on federal spending to stimulate this economy? Mr. Chairman, I voted to hear the bill because I think that's going to decide my yes or no vote on the override, whether to accept this one or hold fast on the one we passed. And so that's my question to the body, or actually to the panel, is if the strategy is to rely on the federal infusion of monies, that would be like hanging your cap on a nail on the wall that's not going to be there next year. There are no guarantees. And so that would be my question, Mr. Chairman, to the panel. Is that the strategy, to rely on federal monies that may or may not be infused into this economy to make up those tax revenues as they cite? $7 million is on the table, but I think it's all going to be on the table come early part of next year. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.